everyone, it's Candace Craw-Goldman again from quantumhealers.com, back again with a What a Great Question series. And I got an email from Emily who writes, first of all, thank you for your What a Great Question series. I love it that you answer many of my own questions about quantum healing. I find myself curious. What is the most commonly asked question you or maybe Dolores ever got or other practitioners get about QHHT or BQH? Your friend, Emily. Okay, Emily, here we go. Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and in the early years, I may have answered this question maybe just a little bit differently. Although questions are roughly the same since I started practicing all the way back in 2008, I think some of the public's concern about the safety of quantum healing or hypnosis has softened. And so quantum healing is increasingly accepted by the public as a valid tool to access consciousness and potentially healing. So it used to be, how safe is that, right? How safe is quantum healing? But one of the most commonly asked questions about both QHHT, which is quantum healing hypnosis technique, Dolores Cannon's, and BQH, which is beyond quantum healing, and has been really at the top of the list for as long as I've been doing this, is will I be able to be hypnotized and will I remember my session? So if you think about it, this question reflects a deep curiosity and also a concern shared by nearly everyone who's new to these modalities. And it's often phrased in a few different ways, but it all encompasses the same thing. What if I can't be hypnotized? What if I fall asleep or make it up? What if I don't remember what I said? Will I be in control? Some of that harkens back to how safe this is, right? That control question. So why this question is so common, really, will I be able to be hypnotized? Will I remember? I started thinking about it, and there's three main reasons that this question is so common. And the first one is that big one, which is misunderstandings about what hypnosis is. So still, even after all these years, all these videos I've done and other people have done and other practitioners have done, there's a huge misunderstanding about hypnosis still. Many people still equate hypnosis with losing control or being unconscious or under anesthesia is kind of how I like to explain it. It's just not that way, right? This is largely due to stage hypnosis, stage shows, pop culture portrayals, TV shows, those kinds of things, the old watch going back and forth, and all the jokes about quacking like a duck. So that's one. The second is kind of the fear of the unknown, right? Even if you get past the idea of hypnosis, the fear of the unknown, exploring past lives, exploring your higher consciousness, or finding yourself in a non-ordinary state can feel vulnerable or even intimidating for many people, especially if it's a new idea. And then the third main reason, I think, is this desire for validation. People want to know that the experience will be real and meaningful and not just their imagination, right? And that brings us to this whole idea of what even imagination is and how our society has for such a very long time demonized this quality in humans. Now, I often say that imagination is the language of the higher self. You really have to trust your imagination to be able to fully and deeply step into this work and benefit from it. You have to trust that. And we've been trained in society through schooling and in other ways to not trust our imagination. Okay, so The common practitioner response from QHHT and BQH facilitators when asked this question is yes, you can be hypnotized. Hypnosis is a natural state. It's not one that needs another person to induce it to you, right? And most people enter a state of hypnosis every day. You are in a form of hypnosis when you're daydreaming, or driving a car, or when you lose track of time. It's a very common state, and there are various degrees of it. Okay, always, you are in control. You're always in control of these sessions. QHHT and BQH are client-led processes, okay? The practitioner guides but does not control. And if they are a practitioner with integrity, they don't influence the journey, right? Most people remember most or all of their session. This is just fact. It's less common now for full somnamblistic states to be necessary for people to allow access to their higher selves in other realms. Yes, it used to be that our subconscious and our higher self would protect our everyday awareness, our conscious mind, from exploring these other states because humans were less evolved, maybe, and we didn't feel comfortable exploring those states. But these days, with humans in the place that they are now, almost everybody remembers most or all of their sessions. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. But this whole idea of needing to be in a classic somnambulistic state, which basically typically means you don't have full recall of what happened, is not, in fact, necessary for transformational things to happen in a quantum healing session. And though some enter deeper levels of trance, it's true, partial, full conscious recall, it's the most common thing. Okay. So imagination is not the enemy, and it is not something to be afraid of, and it's not a reason to discount what you are experiencing being not valid. Imagination is the bridge to intuition and higher consciousness and higher guidance. And what emerges in a session is often far more profound than the conscious mind could invent. So what you're doing is sort of having your conscious mind relax and play along, right? So that is sort of why, if you give yourself the permission to play, some of these sessions can be extremely profound. Okay, so let's now address this idea of people losing control or feeling unsafe. Let's go straight to Dolores Cannon's teachings for this. Dolores Cannon consistently emphasized that past life regression and quantum healing hypnosis technique were not dangerous when conducted properly. What did she mean by that? Well, a lot of things. But in general, the integrity of the practitioner, that's paramount, okay? And in fact, she viewed this as a powerful tool for healing, self-discovery, and of course, connection to the higher self, and not something to fear. But thinking about her words, here's how she typically addressed concerns about this whole losing control or getting lost in a session. Again, she would say, you are always in control. Dolores repeatedly reassured people they are never under anyone's control during a QHHT session. Although the term hypnosis might conjure images of stage shows or mind control, the state she guided clients into, she explained, was a natural, focused level of consciousness. More often described technically as a theta brainwave state or a very deep alpha brainwave state. And everybody enters these two states daily, at least twice a day, just before sleep or just upon awakening, okay? So she often reframed this fear by explaining that you don't lose yourself, you actually access more of yourself. QHHT and of course BQH is about contacting the eternal and wise part of you, the higher self or oversoul. She would always say, which knows everything about your life's plan and your soul's journey. It knows everything about you. I could just hear her voice saying that. So in her words, this work was not about escaping or getting lost, but remembering who you really are. And I'm sure you've heard that before, and you've read those words quite a bit in this space. She taught that once that contact was made with the higher self, or what she used to call the SC or subconscious, although she made it clear this was not the Freudian subconscious, that was sort of confusing over the years. She did emphasize this: that part of you would never do you harm. It would not allow something to happen that was not in your own highest good. Okay? All right, so another point she emphasized, and I emphasize this a lot as well, is that your fears are often ego-based. And so Dolores would, and I gently remind clients and skeptics too, that it is often the analytical mind or the ego that fears letting go, even temporarily. And it's true because, you even crossing the street, you use your ego, that part of you that takes care of yourself, you use your analytical mind looking for things that might possibly hurt you, right? So this letting go is, it's something that some people find kind of difficult to do. But in the decades of work that Dolores did with thousands of sessions worldwide and my own thousands of sessions, there's no reports of anyone ever becoming stuck or losing yourself. And in fact, many of her clients, many of my own clients, many clients of quantum healing practitioners around the world speak about feeling more grounded, more peaceful, and more connected after a session than ever. So what are some common analogies that she used to talk about and that we all continue to talk about? What does it feel like when you are entering into a quantum healing session or a hypnosis state successfully? Well, it's kind of like dreaming while you're awake. You can speak, you can move, you can stop at any time. The hypnotic state is kind of like watching a movie of your own soul's journey. And it's not always a literal movie. It's not always like, you are having a projection right in front of you, like you are conjuring up an actual movie out of light right in front of you, but it's in your mind's eye. And this is something a little different, right? Your mind's eye is something different than something right in front of your eyes, although sometimes it can seem very real. But you're still the one who's holding the remote or able to turn the controls off and on this movie, whether it be in your mind's eye or right here in front of you. Okay. So this question had me pondering a little bit. Were there examples where people maybe expressed regrets for having a session with Dolores or other quantum healers? Well, overall, there's very few who express regrets. And yes, there's always those who felt the session was neutral or even felt it was unsuccessful, kind of depending on the goals of what the client was. But only rarely, quite rarely, do clients have negative things to say about quantum healing. Now, of course, exceptions can be found, and there's always those rogue people out there who get into this work for less than wonderful reasons. And you could point those out, but they are very, very few and far in between. And most of us, especially these days, have the intuition to steer clear of those type. In the main, clients report good, great, and even miraculous session results. And as I started thinking about this a little more, I decided to take a look at some testimonials from our directory listings at quantumhealers.com. And I just kind of picked some random people. And I want to read right now just a couple testimonials from my wonderful friends and fellow practitioners reviews right on our website, right on our directory listings. So from Christina Laver's reviews, here's one, quote, "I would highly recommend Christina and BQH. Her openness and relaxed manner allowed me to feel safe. The experience was incredible and quite unexpected." How's that? Here's another one, quote, "Christina's warmth, compassion, and sincerity was a guiding light. My outer world magically mirrored that process with some amazing transformational experiences." How's that one? And so I continued on and I found another couple of testimonials from Heather Holmes' directory listing. Here's one, quote, "I feel so much lighter, like a heavy load has been lifted." Now that quote is, and a version of that quote is on a lot of our practitioners' listings. Here's another one, quote, "Today's hypnosis session with Heather felt like a lifetime of therapy in an afternoon," close quote. And that's pretty profound, isn't it? It's worth an afternoon to give it a try, if you ask me. All right, from our astrologer friend and profound quantum healer, Patricia Gripjens, here's one, quote, "This surrogate session is one of the best things that happened to me in this lifetime. It saved my life." That was from a client named Joshua. Thanks for writing in, Joshua. I loved being able to read that quote. So, what are some common themes across all of the testimonials that I have thumbed through? Almost all of them focus on how having these sessions made them feel safe, that there was a nurturing space, and that they discovered profound personal insights, that they were memorable, that the experience was deep and had sensory richness. Whether through QHHT or BQH, clients consistently highlight safety and rapport with the practitioner, and deep recall and trance-like immersion, sometimes recalling multiple past lifetimes. They talk about emotional release, healing, and newfound clarity, and very often life-changing transformations, from energetic shifts to the resolution of internal blocks. I actually woke up this morning to a wonderful text from a former client who just had the best things to say still about a session that he had, more than 2 years ago now. All right. So once again, I want to thank you, Emily, for writing in and asking me that question. And why don't you all tell me below in this video's comment section what question you might have about quantum healing or about Dolores, QHHT, BQH, or anything. I would love to hear what kind of question you might come up with. All right, until next time, please consider visiting us over at quantumhealers.com. You can find a practitioner. You can decide to study quantum healing. You can even read our blogs and articles to find out more information about practitioners or different modalities. And if you are an alternative healing practitioner of any kind, please consider joining us. We are a guru-free community that welcomes all alternative healers. And again, too, if you like this video, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It would really help us out with the algorithm. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye, everyone.